I think it's also important when you do that, that the process you follow is one that's also going to provide tremendous value to these young people, regardless of the odds. Meaning a process that is going to allow them to learn about themselves in a new way, to think about careers and opportunities and open horizons. Those are things of enormous value that I think you can provide. You know, even if they never actually get this brass ring or another one, I'd like to believe that most of the people who go through this process will feel at the end that they have really grown and learned a great deal about themselves and equipped themselves with skills that even if they never get selected to be before a Rhodes Scholarship interview committee, will help them in whatever kind of interviews, settings they have in their own career, whether they're academic, business careers, or whatever it might be. And there are other things I think that you might be able to do. Some of you have developed programs in your own colleges where there's special recognition just given to the students who get endorsed. So they can actually even put on their resume or say to their friends or say to their parents, whatever, that they have been endorsed by X for a Rhodes Scholarship. And that is a big deal. As a matter of fact, this year, in that regard, one thing we're going to do is we're going to provide letters signed by the Warden of Rhodes House and me and the selection committee chairs to the finalists. We actually have never even used that word before, but I now see many people on their resumes indicate they're Rhodes Scholar finalists. Say, well, why not? I mean, that's a big deal. And let's formalize that. Let's give them some recognition. So I think there are ways that you can provide some additional recognition locally, even if they're not able to go on and win. And the other thing that I think that's important for you to do, again, in the context of the odds, is just approach them and tell your outstanding students to understand, there's an element of humility in all of this, that some of this is just sheer unadulterated luck. It is a subjective process, and the questions may not be the ideal questions that day for that person, and it's not an objective indication of worth. And the other thing to remember is to somehow avoid the frustration that I know many of you feel if you've been recommending remarkable people, for 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, and never had a Rhodes Scholar from your institution, or maybe never even gotten someone to be interviewed. And one thing to keep in mind there, it's not, they are remarkable. You wouldn't be endorsing them if they weren't remarkable, and they're going to have pretty terrific careers. But I think of the experience even of Rhodes selectors in a similar context, if this makes you feel any better. Back in the days when we used to have a two-tier system, we had a state process and a district process, there would be many situations where someone would be the secretary of State X, and she would go on to the district each year with one or two people who have just been selected as the state finalists. And you've got a committee of 7 people, and they've all spent 2 days with these people, and they think, Sally and John are absolutely incredible, and how could they possibly not win? Well, year after year after year, they go off to the city for the district interview, and they don't win. And this person goes back to the state each time. And it's a very difficult thing when you don't see the quality of the other people who are there. And so I understand, I empathize when you do have someone who does not get selected for an interview or does not get selected, but that is no discredit to him, and I'd like to think that it's no discredit to us in the way we make our selections. But we're dealing with an extraordinary pool of people. I understand that frustration. And as I said, the standards do get higher every year. I mean, and it's always a wonderful thing for me and others in the selection process to be able to say, and frankly, in complete candor, when we name the new winners, that we're very thankful that we didn't, that we're not applying today, that we applied 30, 40 years ago. We probably wouldn't have been selected for an interview. It is remarkable, and it's a sign of the incredible strength of college students around the country. And realistically, again, one of the questions is, well, how are we going to know? How are you going to know if they stand a realistic chance? One thing you have to ask is just look at the academic record itself. again, and I'll talk more about this, we're looking for well-rounded excellence. We're looking for outstanding students of character and leadership ability, leadership potential, leadership that's directed to others. Remember what Cecil Rhodes said about, contributing to the world's fight, making a difference. So we're looking up for a combination of things. But the foundation, remember, this is an academic award to go to a preeminent academic institution. The foundation is an intellectual foundation. There's no point in us electing a Rhodes Scholar who then is not going to be admitted to Oxford University. We do not have, an official stamp of Oxford to, say anybody we select is automatically going to be admitted to the university. There has never been an American Rhodes Scholar who hasn't been admitted to the university. However, I think that will happen. Just because the standards are getting higher and higher, and I'll talk in a minute about the various degree programs. Some of them are very small. But we would not be doing anyone a favor by choosing a remarkable person you could predict is going to be, President of the United States someday, if she is not someone who is going to make the academic cut. We're not going to be electing that person. It is primarily an academic award where we're looking for these other kinds of things to balance the person out. And people say, well, what does that mean in terms of GPA or something like that? Well, I will continue to fight as long as I can to avoid having a minimum GPA for the Rhodes Scholarship, because you all have different standards. We have no minimum GPA, although I'm frustrated to say that now many Oxford departments do have minimum GPAs, and they're usually about 3.8. We don't publish the GPAs of our winners, but the average GPA, when I calculated it 2 years ago, was like 3.97 or something like that. So, and the other thing you want to consider is, if that person is not going to be admitted or would not be admitted to the handful of the most selective graduate or professional schools in his or her field in the United States, highly unlikely that she's going to be elected to a Rhodes Scholarship. So keep in mind, yes, we're looking for character, we're looking for leadership, we're looking for all those other things, but it has to be part of a package that's grounded in really pretty remarkable academic success. Let me talk a little bit about Oxford. Obviously, Rhodes Scholarships are tenable only to Oxford. Another problem, perhaps, with the fact that we are as well known as we are, is we attract sometimes many outstanding young people who would love to have the words Rhodes Scholar following their name. And they may have great intellect, they may have great character, leadership, unrivaled opportunities, but if he or she does not want to spend 2 or 3 or 4 years in a serious academic program at Oxford, shouldn't apply. I mean, this is not just a prize. This is an award to an institution for an academic purpose. We try very hard, and I think we're pretty successful in our filtering mechanisms to filter out those people we consider just trophy hunters who would like to be a Rhodes Scholar but really don't want to spend 2 years or 3 years at Oxford. But just remember, as obvious as it seems, that one has to be there. What degree they want to do at Oxford, though, here I'd urge you all to, frankly, relax a little, at least for the Rhodes Scholarships. For other kinds of awards, you do have to become somewhat expert in the particular degree that the student is interested in, because that person is going to apply for a particular degree. And if they do not get into that degree, they're probably not going to get into the university. This is an area where we have a bit of an advantage over other scholarships, in that we have an institution at Oxford that assists in this process. And for many people, frankly, it's understandable to me, given the odds of selection, to invest an enormous amount of time in whether you're going to do this particular MST or this MPhil or a DPhil or a BA doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But until, and some people actually win every year, they don't really take Oxford seriously until they hear their name read aloud by the chairman of the selection committee and say, my God, I'm actually going to the place, what am I going to do? Actually, a little secret is about a third, at least a third of the 32 every year change their degree course entirely after talking to me after winning. And that's fine. We think it's understandable. And the other thing about the degree course is if they are not successful, and in some cases, even if they want to do it, I'll say, you know what? You're not going to get admitted to that degree. You want to do the MPhil in International Relations, you want to do the MSc in Global Health Science, and I'll look at their record. I say, you're not going to be admitted, so I'm not going to let you waste your time with that, and I will suggest something else. But at least for most Rhodes Scholars, if they don't have the opportunity in their degree, their first choice degree, there are lots of others. You know, now Oxford, there's this huge number of 1- and 2-year master's degrees, so the likelihood of someone who really wants to be studying at Oxford finding another one, or 2 or 3 that are also very attractive is very high. So, you know, they shouldn't spend enormous amounts of time worrying about degree X or degree Y. They should apply and indicate a reasonable reason why they should do and why they're qualified for a particular degree. And another little point on that is, and I'll talk about the essay too in a minute, we now, because the American Rhodes essays, frankly, turn off as many Oxford admissions directors as it turns on, probably turns off more than it turns on, we're going to actually strip that out when we send the application on after the winners and actually ask them to write an entirely new short statement of purpose explaining why they wanted to do degree X. So don't worry too much about that. But you know, do encourage your students to look at the range of degrees and also make sure they look online to see all the new degrees. They're unlike most American universities that have very few master's degrees. Oxford, there are hundreds. And they keep adding to one. As a matter of fact, one that's going to be added this fall that's eligible for Rhodes Scholars is going to be very popular. It's a 1-year master's in public policy. And so that's now going to be an eligible degree. But even there again, they're only going to accept 20 or 30 people in year 1. They're going to turn down Rhodes Scholars for that degree. So just, again, keep that a little bit in mind. But a footnote there, for those of you advising scholars or advising students who are going to go to a British university and not through the Rhodes process, you do really need to do everything you can to understand the different degrees and the advantages and disadvantages of each.